Well, it's Thursday, the 23rd of February. This is the first webinar for 2023 of Law Chat. A warm welcome to you all, whoever may be joining us today, and if not today, then watching this recording. Law Chat is brought to you in association with Moore Markhams, accountants and business advisors offering specialist financial services to the legal profession. We thank them for their continued sponsorship of Law Chat. And to kick off the series here in 2023, it's my great pleasure to welcome Owen Culliney, who is managing partner of IC Law in Hamilton in New Zealand. And Owen came to my attention last year after I read a very insightful interview with him in one of the legal media. And since then, I've had the chance to chat to Owen on a few occasions. And today we're going to explore a number of issues, but we're going to round up on the title for today, which is the $1 trillion problem, really looking at the succession issue that's facing the legal profession, probably not just here in New Zealand, but also overseas as well. Owen, a very warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining us on Law Chat today.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Great pleasure. Hey, look, let's wind the clock back if we can, because as you know, I've just finished writing a book on leadership, and yet I'm talking today with someone who is a leader in his firm. But it's interesting that what stood you out in my mind in that interview that I read last year was very much your philosophy that drove you to do what you do. So I'm interested to contextualize your comments today. If you could give us a little insight into your background, how you got into law,
Sure.
And all the rest of it, and how eventually you started your own firm. But let's take us back to when you were a kid, I suppose.
It's a long way back, Simon, but I think my love of helping people out and being someone who solved problems probably does hark back to those early days. I was born and bred in Tauranga, which is not far from where I live now in Hamilton, and we've actually just opened a practice over there as of end of last year, so it's exciting to be back in the Bay of Plenty. And my joy and the things that spun my wheels were setting up cricket games and those sorts of things for my friends. And really for me, it was about hanging out. We were immigrants, so my parents are both from London, and they hailed from Ireland. And so the story goes they ran out of money in Wellington on a world tour, and so we didn't really have family around, and so I made a family out of my friends and my mates, because that's all I had. So that grew to the point where I suppose now there's always lots of options when you're a lawyer and under your own steam, and one of them is to open a sole practice and bill you $500,000 a year of fees and have a very simple life. And it was never for me. I wanted a firm, I wanted people around me, I wanted to grow a business with effervescent young people and people by my side who were my age, and I wanted to lead a group. And I think that harping back to those days, organising cricket matches and things like that, I think it was exactly the same thing. I love the conversations, and I love the opportunities to lead.
So tell me something. When did you set up IC Law?
A bit more than 5 years ago, and that decision was actually made many years prior. I think in about the 5th year of my practice, I thought, gosh, this is an interesting profession. And I mean, I got into it because my parents told me I had to, so it kind of wasn't really my decision, arguably, but I was there. What was I going to do? Go and retrain as a plumber or a sparky maybe? But my wife, she said to me, well, if you do that, you're just going to end up where you are anyway. You're going to be a technician no matter what. Why don't you use the skills you have and the education you've got to build a business with the law? And so at about that sort of 5 to 6 years stage, I started compiling my own practice, going out, meeting people. That led to a firm change. So I changed from where I was to a different firm and got a lot of great experience there. I was given more autonomy in terms of my practice growth. But as with anything, you've got to look to the future and see where it would look, or what it would look like. And for me, it just didn't suit me. And I thought, well, actually, probably nothing will. Nothing will suit me. I kind of just need to, set up myself, do something myself, and so we did, and so it's been just a bit over 5 years, and we've grown from 2 staff to 30 staff. We've got now 3 offices, one in Tauranga, one in Hamilton, one in Hong Kong. I love what I do. I probably only spend 2 hours a day on legal work, which is enough to keep me, interested. I love being a lawyer, but more, I love more managing lawyers and looking after them and growing their careers.
That's terrific. That's a great help. I mean, as I said to you in my introduction, what distinguished you in my mind was very much your perception about leadership and its role within the legal profession. And I think one of the quotes in that interview that I read about is that lawyers need to think, in your view, lawyers need to think beyond ladder climbing, and that fees and expertise do not define a leader. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think because of what we do as professionals, I think we count ourselves as experts in business. I mean, I know that the law is wide and varying, but in my case, it's always been a commercial space that I've practiced in. And so, I think I sort of imagine myself a business expert as a consequence of advising businesses. Not sure that's true, because certainly owning one's own business is a completely different ballgame. But the point I guess I was making about it is that if my focus was entirely on fees and growth of my own knowledge in the law and assisting the clients that I had the time in my day to assist, then I wouldn't actually make much of a difference. My clients that I was able to, look after would I think improve the situation that they're in because of my counsel, but that the scope of my time would limit the number of people I could therefore help. And so, sort of focus on things other than fees and expertise is really about focusing on the careers and advancement of people that I can influence in my employ, who can then influence clients in the same way, which necessarily means that I now have 20 times more capacity to affect people's lives in a positive way.
And I think it's fair to say, am I right, that you've devoted quite a amount of time in investing in the development of the people who work with you?
Well, we spend a huge amount of time on it, and I mean, sometimes it's a tiresome task because of who they are and the age and stage and where they've come from. And some of them are institutionalized by virtue of where they've been in the law historically. But it's hugely rewarding to take someone at a particular stage in their career and then teaching the skills of management and leadership and what business development looks like, and how to genuinely write a good letter and then see them blossom. I get so much joy out of that.
So effectively, you're giving them what you would have loved when you were 25 years old.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I don't blame the partners that looked after me back in the day either. I mean, it's hard. If you are focused on fees and expertise, you just don't have the time in your day to expend on your team. I mean, our attitude was it's team first. If a client comes into our sphere of influence and they're not nice to my team, we get rid of them because they're not as important as the people that do the work. And that's for the very same reasons I mentioned. I've got 20 people who on an authorship sense, who affect the lives of my clients. If one of them is not going to be nice about it, well, I don't really want them.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey, so let's talk about the bigger problem as you see it, and when we were discussing what we might focus on today, the issue of succession, and as you described it, possibly the potential trillion-dollar problem facing the legal profession. What do you define as being that trillion-dollar problem?
Yes, so I mean, obviously it's a very clickbait title, the trillion-dollar problem. I don't know. I don't have a calculator to determine exactly the monetary value of the problem, but the problem, as far as I can sense it, is that you've got a large group in the accounting profession, legal profession, and other professional services professions who are at an age and stage where they probably need support And look, some firms won't fall into this category, right? Some firms will have succession planned very well, and they'll have their senior associates and their junior partners in line, and they'll be succeeding to them properly. But in my observation is that there are many who don't, and it's not just in New Zealand. There's many firms who, as I say, squeeze the lemon for the last 5 or 10 years and find themselves airless. There's just no one to succeed to, and that's very sad. But I can also see how you could get yourself in that position very easily. It is just the nature of the beast. If you are focusing on fees and expertise, and you're trying to get your 6 to 7 hours billable a day, and your clients constantly calling you, and you've got the pressures of all the things that a business, a law firm, any other business presents to you. When do you find the time to succeed? The trouble, of course, is that it must happen. I mean, Father Time waits for no one, right? It is what it is. We grow old, and so as much as we might imagine ourselves invincible and that we might have 10 years left in the tank, we don't. We don't. And so the inevitable will occur as a consequence of exhaustion or health or something else. The worry that I've got is that you then have this slew of clients who are accustomed to and have got this wonderful relationship with the advice of their lawyer, and that's when that person's not available anymore. What will they do? Who will remember the 5 years prior issue that happened in respect of the trust, or the issue that occurred in respect of the easement over the property that they bought? That knowledge, that IP, is not going anywhere, and I think that's a problem. And I think that financially we'll see an impact. There will be a slowdown in commerce. There'll be a slowdown in people's ability to proceed in their life, because they just will need to teach someone new immediately, without the runway, all about the things that affect them. We ask a question to our clients. We say, what does success look like? And I think all lawyers ask that question in different ways. That's just the way we do. So going into a relationship with a client, all my staff do this. They have an understanding of what success looks like, and I think you have to as an advisor. So if the advisor is just not there the following day, and the knowledge of what success looks like is not imparted to someone else, it's going to take years across that 1,000 clients. It's going to take years to catch up and give that advice on that same basis. And it will have an effect on cash flow. It will have an effect on succession in our clients' businesses. It'll have an effect on family. It'll have an effect on mental health. And I think that'll slow the economy down. And I don't know whether it's going to be $1 trillion slowdown, but it'll be a slowdown.
It'd be a lot of money, I suspect. Interestingly, before we came on today, I had a quick look here in New Zealand at the statistics, and it would suggest that over approximately 25% of practitioners, or those holding practicing certificates, have been in practice between 26 and 50 years, which suggests to me that maybe 25% of practitioners are staring retirement down a barrel, and therefore having to address the succession problem pretty rapidly.
Yeah, it's happening now. It would be very few instances where a month would go by where there isn't a notice of some practitioner whose practice has had to be handed over in a bit of a hurry because of health.
Yeah.
And I cannot see that's good for anybody. I can't see that's good for the practitioner. I can't see that's good for their clients. I can't see that's good for their administration team, or the legal secretaries or legal executives. I can't see anyone benefiting from that at all.
So what can people who are facing this challenge or this problem in their own practices learn from you? What advice might you be giving them if they might be, say, in their early 60s, they feel they're in good health, but they do feel the need to still squeeze the lemon, as you put it? Perhaps they may be having to look at the further horizon. What advice might you want to pass on to them?
Well, it's hard to say. I'm 41, so I can't pretend to imagine what it would look like or feel like to be in that situation. But I certainly want to avoid that situation myself. And the way that I intend to avoid that situation is to have a steady flow of people coming into my firm at a junior level, a careful and dedicated approach to looking after my associates and rewarding them, against market, such that there's always going to be that group that wants to succeed to me. We didn't start this long ago, right? But I still think of myself as only a custodian of a brand that someone else will inherit. And I just don't know whether that's something that practitioners kind of think about. But if that's your approach, if that's your mentality, if you're just a custodian of a brand that you're going to pass on, you're going to approach it completely differently to the way you might approach it if it was just yours.
Quick question. I mean, very important what you say, and I'm just wondering, given your age and the age of the people who work with you, are you finding that the younger people who are entering law and looking for a seat in a law business like yours, do they have a different attitude from your predecessors or even your generation?
Oh yes, yeah. Some of them have no vision of ownership. I think this is the strangest thing, isn't it? There aren't many professions or trades that you walk in on your first day and you imagine one day you're gonna own it. I think the law has tended to be that profession that, my parents told me there was going to be this wonderful career where I'd have lots of fast cars and big houses and things like that. And the only way I knew I was going to get that is by virtue of ownership. So I walked into the profession imagining that I'd own the firm that I was in. And that's very unique in terms of other professions and other trades. But what I'm observing is that that's not the case so much anymore. I think we've got a generation, or a couple at least generations of guys coming in who don't intend to own. They actually just want to do a good day's work for a good day's wage.
Yeah,
and that's great.
Well, that's fair enough, I guess, on one hand. On the other hand, I suppose there's also this issue of, to be a successful and effective advisor these days, and certainly I'm speaking from my experience here, that an increasing number of young lawyers need to have broader perspectives in terms of their education. I think you made comment there about having business skills and being able to provide an holistic view by asking questions like, what does success look like, rather than just head down, the client's given me this brief and therefore I'm just going to focus my attention on this brief rather than looking at the other extraneous factors that might have brought the client to the position that he or she might be in. So, I guess my question for you is, do you feel that the universities or post-qualification, the regulatory bodies are doing enough to provide enough of an education for young lawyers so that they've got the requisite business skills to be effective?
Well, no. I suppose it's a leading question, but I think the answer is no. We don't walk out of law school with anything apart from, I think, a ticket to ride. You've convinced enough people that you're smart enough to and dedicated enough to get a degree, and I think that's really all that law school is. I've had this conversation with some of my colleagues at Wakatu Law School, Faculty of Law, and we've talked about the fact that there could be additional courses that are dedicated to mindfulness and soft skills and questioning. And whilst the conversations are always fruitful and enjoyable, I don't see it going anywhere, because ultimately that's not what the purpose of the law school is. I think that the profession is the place that you learn those things, if you haven't already. I've always enjoyed my conversation. I enjoyed when I was at law school, my conversations with the mature students, because they had those skills, because they had children, and they were therefore used to negotiating with terrorists and all those sorts of things. And it's those soft skills that are completely lacking.
And whose responsibility do you think it is, Owen, to teach them those soft skills? Is it gained just through experience? Is it the role of senior lawyers to mentor them? Or is it a combination of that along with external intervention, leadership development programs and so on?
Well, I think it's the role of the senior lawyers to permit time and space for those skills to develop. I don't know that all lawyers have them. those skills. So, that would be the blind leading the blind in some cases. And so we have to accept, well, I've had to accept that I'm not an expert in that field. And so we engage with coaches, which we pay a small fortune to come into our firm and coach our solicitors and our team and on those very same skills. We call it personal effectiveness training, PEP training.
Yeah.
Every person that comes into the firm goes through a personality test, which sounds a wee bit sort of droll, but that's kind of is that, and they get a better understanding as a consequence of that test and that training of who they are, which allows them to accept that they're putting a lens on the communication that's coming to them, and that the people they're communicating to will have a lens on what they're saying. It's not rocket science, right? I mean, when it was introduced to me as a concept, I thought, well, that doesn't sound new. Why would I spend money on that? But the guys here love it, and they apply the skills that they've gained not just in this firm, but in the relationship with their parents and their children and their husbands and wives, and it's wonderful.
So the benefits of coaching are far-reaching from you and your team's experience.
Yeah, huge. I mean, when I've mentioned it to a few people, including clients, they said, "Oh, why are you being so woke about it?" But we did it anyway, and the results are incredible.
Interesting. You use the word woke there. It's as you may know, I just finished writing a book on leadership, and I interviewed 10 practitioners as part of that collaborative project, and nearly all of them said, the amount of time that they spend firstly on becoming better leaders themselves, and that involves a high degree of self-awareness, which sort of leads to the first of the principles: before you lead others, learn to lead yourself. And by the sounds of it, that's very much something that you would believe in as well.
Yeah, but I had to learn that. I mean, I'm a relatively young man. I was relatively younger, 5 years ago, and I thought I knew everything. And I look back on some of my experiences as a intermediate solicitor in the firms I worked for, and I think, gosh, I must have been hard to employ. I just must have been tough work, and so I've learned a lot. But I've had to, I think, in understanding that to build a firm like we've built as quickly as we have, that I would need some additional skills. So yeah, we employed a coach quite early on, and initially, I was definitely skeptical about whether that was going to pay dividends, but it certainly, I enjoy it. The All Blacks still have coaches, right? They're the best in the world.
Of course, some of the best business leaders do, I think. Look, it's interesting that there's so many changes and trends that are impacting on private practices, small legal businesses, along the lines of your firm, one of which has been increasingly in the headlines over the past 2 years is the idea of the 4-day week. I'm wondering if you have any views about this idea of moving away from fees and delivering on hours to delivering on outcomes.
Yeah, I don't know how one conducts a practice where you must be available to your clients relatively freely and only work 4 days a week. But we've got team members here who do that, and we've allowed for that to happen because it suits them, and from our perspective, we want to support them. They tend to be new mums and things like that, and they do manage. I don't know whether it's one of those things you crack policy around. A 40-hour week, I'm sure, could be conducted over, if you wanted to, 2 days. It's if that's the expectation is time. But to your point about outcomes, I think if you are a genuinely engaged practitioner, a genuinely engaged advisor, then that would then steer how you and when you deliver that advice. If you care about your client's outcomes and your client needs something at 5:45 on a Friday, and you genuinely give a shit about that outcome, you'll deliver that, whether that's your day off or not. You just will. And so our attitude is we talk about IC lawyering from anywhere. You can do it from anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can do it anytime, but just be respectful of your own time, your own value. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned you have a Hong Kong office as well. Do you manage to sort of recreate the same culture in Hong Kong as you do here in New Zealand?
It's one guy in probably a broom closet size office. So it's yeah, he's lovely, and he's coming out soon to visit again. And it's been a while since we've seen him, and so culture's not really our focus in that office. But were we to grow it, we would, and well, as I said, we've opened an office in the Bay of Plenty, so I can talk to that. You know, in growing that office, the culture will be the same.
Yeah, but presumably anyone who works for or with your firm, no matter where they are in the world, would need to meet certain criteria, and I guess that's what helps, is the glue that holds you all together.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a bit silly to say, but we used to talk about us being a family. We don't use that analogy quite so much anymore because I don't think it's right. I mean, you've got a family, and that's the people you love. I like these guys a lot. I'm not sure I love them, you know what I mean? But I think it is a bit like that. It's family-esque. I want to see their careers flourish, and we say to them when they come in, look, you know, as long as your needs are being met here, we'll have you. But it's your career. At the end of the day, you do what you want to do. This is just the environment you'll do it.
Yeah. And to what extent do you think technology might help solve the $1 trillion problem?
I don't know whether it's going to play a role in the immediate solution, because we're talking about something that needs to occur in relatively old practices. Like you're talking about people who've been doing this for 50 years, right? Those dusty old deeds that are sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere. That's, you know, we're not going to solve that problem by technology. But we use, I mean, in this firm, we use technology a lot, and I think that allows us to expedite the advice and things like that. I think that therein lies a great advantage for technology. But in terms of solving the problem, I think it's just going to be good old-fashioned just transition, just doing it well. And I think, to answer one of your earlier questions, if I was in a stage in my career where I could see the writing was on the wall and I didn't have people to succeed to, I'd be trying to find someone like me with a firm that with a firm and resources that I've got around me to fold my clients into it, because I would, and this is obviously me saying this, of course I would therefore be trusting of the fact that they're going to be looked after, and my staff are going to be looked after, and that there's going to be some care in the transition. And whether that transition is a 2-year transition or a year or an overnight one, you know, the needs of that exiting practitioner need to be met, and I completely respect that. So, you know, we're going on a journey now where we're trying to do precisely that for those very people, is transition them fairly and with respect and with dignity.
Terrific. Before we close, I normally ask a question of my guests in terms of what advice they might have, often aimed at leaders and older people in firms. But today I'm going to ask you to say, what advice would you have to young people who are maybe choosing or a career in law, or might find that they're in it by accident, much like you and I might have done? So I'm 22, 23 years of age. I've come in bright-eyed with lots of expectations. Bring me down to earth. Tell me what I need to hear.
I wouldn't bring you down to earth at all. I'd say, look, this is a really cool profession that you've entered, and well done for getting to the point where someone's allowed you an opportunity to work in it. You're smart, dedicated, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, as you described. But the success that you'll experience in this profession will have nothing to do with your technical ability. You will just be like any other lawyer. A, B, and C lawyer, they're going to deliver pretty much the same advice. And so your success in this profession will have everything to do with your soft skills and your ability to hear and understand and work out what success looks like, and then delivering that to your clients.
Wonderful advice, Owen. Hey, look, thank you very much for joining us on Law Chat today. Half an hour's flown by already, but I wish you and all the team in Hong Kong and now in the Bay of Plenty all the best for the future. Thanks for coming on. I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thanks, Simon. Appreciate that.
Take care. Bye-bye, everyone. We'll see you next month. Bye-bye now.